Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, whilst Budget 2023 was certainly ambitious, the effectiveness of its measures will be determined by the businesses on the ground. Duncan Graham is the Managing Director of Retail Excellence Ireland, and he joins us now to evaluate the measures through the lens of the retail sector. Duncan, before we discuss the budget, how has the retail sector been performing in Ireland this year?
Morning, Carl. Yeah, it's been an interesting year because obviously we came in still with COVID in the background at the start of the year. If you recall, we had all the issues around Omicron and a lot of uncertainty, and then within a month we were trading fully again and cracking on as if nothing had happened. And I think up until the middle part of the year, it's been pretty positive, albeit we've had the issues of Ukraine and energy costs starting to rise, have started to creep in. But generally, it's been positive. We've had tourism back in the country, which has been good, and retailers have traded quite well through to the middle part of the year. Over the last few weeks and the last couple of months, we've certainly seen that drop away, and there is some definite concerns over there. So, whilst Q1 and Q2 are reasonably good, I think what we'll see with the Q3 figures will be a downturn and some difficulties. And, I think retailers are generally very cautious at the moment.
Do you put that down to the increase in cost of living?
Absolutely. I think an increased cost of living, lowered consumer confidence. I think the rising interest rates are not helping. So, everything is coming together as a bit of a perfect storm. And retailers that have really only just got themselves back together after COVID are now facing into another difficult Christmas. So, not ideal at all at the moment. And we certainly seem to be extremely adaptable and having to get through these difficulties. It seems to be the norm at the moment that we're facing into to problems. That's the nature of the beast.
That is for sure. Now, the reason I've asked you to join us on this morning's show is to get your opinion and insights into Budget 2023 from a retail perspective. So firstly, what was your overall impression of the budget?
I suppose looking at it, my overall view would be a bit of a licorice all sorts budget. There seems to be something in it for everyone, and certainly the numbers are pretty eye-watering when you look at the 11 billion that is being mentioned. I mean, as usual with these things, a lot of it was flagged beforehand. I think from a retail perspective, the big issue that's dominated throughout was around energy costs and what was going to be there for businesses around energy. And I think certainly, we felt that had come through very late. It certainly wasn't being talked about probably up until really 2 weeks before the budget was announced was the first time we started to hear about something like this. But overall, I think it's something there. I think the big issue that's coming back from retailers at the moment is, will the supports that have been put in place be enough? Because certainly the view from our members is, yeah, okay, I'll take it, but I've still got some concerns.
And of course, the big focus of Budget 2023 was on the measures that government would introduce to tackle the rising energy costs. But before we discuss these measures, can you tell us about the level of increases which your members have been experiencing?
We had a conference there on the 6th of September, and many at that point were saying that, an energy bill of 20 to 30,000 a year was going up to 100,000 a year. So they were saying that, they were facing into at least double, if not triple, what they'd been facing before. And for a small retailer that is probably high value, low margin business, that's the difference between being in business and being out of business by the end of the year. So, that was the real concern that was coming across. And as I said before, we're seeing this sort of drop off in terms of consumer confidence, drop off in terms of trade. So, certainly there was a view very much from business that something needed to be done, some step needed to be taken quickly in order to give certainty. And that was the other big issue, the uncertainty that we were facing into. Now, all businesses are facing into that at the moment, but in retail terms, we really need certainty, particularly at this time of the year, facing into the big quarter 4.
And if the government didn't intervene with supports around the energy cost increases, could you have imagined that some of your members could have went out of business?
Undoubtedly. I know the Taoiseach a few weeks ago, and he said this quite publicly, he was saying that we haven't spent the last 2 years supporting businesses only to see viable businesses failing now. But without these supports, there's absolutely no doubt that businesses would fail. And we're already starting to see it. If you look at some of the information that was being put out there last week, it was suggesting that there's been a ratcheting up of business failures over the last few months, which can all be linked back to COVID closures and all that sort of thing. So, without some of these supports, there would be a very, very difficult few months to come, and businesses wouldn't be in business at Christmas at this rate.
So the temporary business energy support scheme was announced as part of Budget 2023. What's your initial impression of the scheme?
Yeah, look, I think we were pleased. I think there are still some unanswered questions. I think if you say to retailers, you're facing into 50, if you've got an increase in your energy costs of 50%, that 40% of that energy cost increase would be covered in the form of a rebate. For many retailers, that still leaves 60% of that energy cost that's not being covered. And for many, that's, tens of thousands of euro across the course of a year. So, that is a real headache and something that, needs to be dealt with. I think it's always interesting to look at something that has the word temporary at the beginning of it, because there is no doubt that this will be reviewed and will need to be relooked at probably in February when it's meant to expire, and I'm sure that there will be something that will be ongoing at that point.
One other piece of good news that came out in the budget for retailers was in relation to the extension of the limit for vouchers from €500 to €1,000 per annum. Surely that's very much welcomed by your members across the country?
Yeah, I think that is welcome. I think that's welcome news. I think, the €500 was a bit of a drop in the ocean before. I think, now seeing that double up to 1,000 and the fact that you can take it, on 2 occasions during the course of the year, I think that is certainly of benefit. These vouchers or gift cards and things do tend to be issued at Christmas, so that would give retailers a bit of a lift, a bit of a boost at a critically important time. Absolutely, we welcome that. What we would like them to do is do something with the open loop cards, which can be spent outside of the state. We do think there's something that could be done there. Absolutely pat on the back to the government for pushing this one, and that will definitely have some benefit for retailers, as I say, this Christmas.
So, Duncan, what other measures and supports which were not included in the budget would you have liked to have seen introduced for retailers?
Yeah, look, I think one of the ones that's really helped during COVID and could have been extended was the warehouse tax scheme. We're now in a place where retailers and other businesses are now starting to pay back that warehouse tax. And at times when things are really tough, it would have been great to have seen the government extend that. Maybe extend it for another 6 months or another year to give businesses that cash flow that they need to get through this period. So that was certainly a big one. And then, you're into some of the smaller things like continuation of rates waivers and so on. So those were certainly things that we looked for. I'd also like to see more emphasis put on continuing the online retail scheme, albeit that has helped us certainly through COVID and has really helped retail pivot their business to a more omni-channel. And I think that's really where retail is starting to go. So those are some of the things, but there's plenty here for us to get our teeth into.
Of course, there's lots of talk about the number of landlords that are exiting the market, both residential and commercial. Is that a concern for you that the budget didn't address that in any way?
Yeah, look, I think we've seen a lot of vacant retail property emerge, and we've seen difficulties of bringing in extra international retailers to fill some of this space in the Irish market. And I think, we do need to make sure that some of this vacant property around our towns and our shopping centres, and you can see it anywhere you go in any shopping centre or any town across the country, there's vacant property. And I think we do need to see something coming together in terms of some support for landlords, some support for retailers, and support for new retailers to open up premises with maybe rent-free periods and rates waivers for periods of time just to get established. So that whole property issue hasn't gone away, and I suspect it's going to be around for a while. And retail, we need to play our part to fill some of this space.
At the start of the interview, you did mention that there is an issue, of course, now with consumer sentiment out there and confidence in the market. So what could the government do to actually increase spending in the retail sector?
Back to your point around property, I think there's a real need to, for example, this whole 15-minute town. What do we need? What can we do with all of this property that's vacant, particularly at second and first floor level? We were talking to Minister Darragh O'Brien there about a week ago, the ploughing championships, around the need to make the planning laws and planning regulations better so that we can fill that. And a lot of that is stockroom space that retailers no longer need, that could really be introduced for residential accommodation, and that would bring life back into our cities. So, those sort of things, life back into our cities, being able to bring more people into the retail industry. That's something we've been working on with government around, the whole issue of more work permits for non-EU people to come across and take jobs in the retail industry. That's certainly a big one. And then all the supports for the green side. We need to make these green sustainable grants easier for people to get hold of. We need to make sure that that retailers can make their businesses more sustainable and play their part, and they need to be easy and non-bureaucratic. So those are some of the things that we need to be working on with government over the next few months and years. And
what specific renewable energy and energy efficiency grants would you like to have seen being introduced?
A lot of the grants and things that you see out there at the moment are very much aimed at business. And when retailers start going in and looking, is that for me? They find that, in reality, it's for manufacturing businesses or it's for businesses that are trying to export. And we really need to see something that's very much focused on sustainability in retail.
Are your own members concerned about the imminent increase in the minimum wage?
Yeah, look, I think when you look at what's coming down the tracks in January, we're not only seeing the increase in minimum wage, we're also seeing the introduction of statutory sick pay. And we're also then down the line, we'll be seeing the introduction of pension auto-enrolment. So the labour cost side of retail at the moment is going up. So, we're facing into a situation where obviously we've been talking earlier about energy supports, but we really need to be looking at what's going to go on beyond January, and there is almost that disincentive at the moment to be employing additional people because you're going to be facing these additional costs come January 1. So that is an issue. It is something that retailers are concerned about, and it's just another part that's going to impact our margins. So, we are concerned about that.
And looking beyond that, what is your outlook for the economy over the next 12 to 18 months?
I genuinely think things are going to be tough. I mean, one thing that is very much coming up everywhere you go at the moment is this word uncertainty. We seem to be locked into what's going on in Ukraine, and obviously we can't move based on that at the moment. We don't know what's happening. As I said before, temporary is temporary now, but it could be permanent in February in terms of energy supports. So I think the biggest thing that we need is certainty. And until we get that, I think things are going to be tough. And hopefully we'll see inflation start to dip a bit during the course of next year as we get on top of it. But I think for the moment, it's about retail weathering the storm. I think retailers will increasingly have an omni-channel presence. I think the physical shopping will still be there. I think local shopping will still be there. So I think retail on the whole will survive. But I think we're going to go through a tough few months to come.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Duncan Graham, the Managing Director of Retail Excellence Ireland, and we do hope that these measures will help to sustain the retail sector and its vital contribution to our local economy.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast.